Let's rock.
Hello, everybody. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Let's rock!
Who's on this album aside from you? And don't mention the guests yet because we're going to get to that later, like the special guests, but like drums and bass and all that stuff. Is it all you?
I did all the bass on this album, the drums, the majority of it, the MVP is Kyle Hughes. He is
Oh,
this.
I love that guy.
He's wonderful. Yeah, he plays with Richie Kotzen now, and he's played with Marco Mendoza and Graham Bonnet, and he's phenomenal. I met him about 10 years ago. I was doing a little solo tour through the UK, and his band was opening, and they reached out and said, "We'll learn your songs and be your backing band for the show if you want." I'm like, "Sure." And he was incredible. He was such a nice kid. He was only like 16, but he was more professional than people like 10 times his age. Uh, Maybe not 10 times because they'd be 160. But, definitely 4 times his age, we'll say. And yeah, he was phenomenal. He just nailed everything. He put on a great show. Even sang backing vocals. He was just wonderful to work with. It's like, I want to keep this dude. It's like, yeah, he's only 16, but he's got a future to him, and I would love to be part of his journey and to have him be my drummer. And from that point on, he's my drummer. And he laid all the crazy drums. Anything I threw at him, no problem. He just got it down and nailed it and just gave everything life and energy and phenomenal. So the only other drummer on the album is one song called Once and Forever. That also has a couple other guests on it. And that is my old dear friend Jerry Gaskell from King's X.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that slow, ballady, bonhamy, that's him.
Wow.
Yeah.
The hell of a drummer, too.
Oh, he's wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, so we should mention some of the guests, but before we get to that, the first song, Simon in Space, two questions about this one. What are you tuned to? It sounds like it's like a Z flat or something. My God, it's low. It's grumbly. It's growly.
So that is the tuning that I started with all the other bands I was playing with, like Sons of Apollo, Whom Gods Destroy, where I keep this neck down to a drop D, and this one is like a 7-string, where I drop this 2.5 steps down to what the 7th string would be, to a low B. But what I do is, on the fretless with the low B, I also put on a low octave pedal that adds an extra low octave to it. So while I was writing a bunch of Whom Gods Destroy stuff during the pandemic, at the same time I'm working on the album, that headspace of writing all this weird chromatic, just, weird, dark, low stuff, that definitely bled into the writing for the solo album as well. So the opening riff of Simon in Space, middle section of Moonshine Hootenanny or Monstruoso, like they all kind of have that feel to them. Yeah, so I'm tuned just to a low B as if it was a 7-string guitar, but it's the octave pedal and the mix of that octave at about 60%, where the natural guitar is still coming through, the two together. It gives it a really nasty, just big, nasty sound.
Yeah, it is. It blew me away. I thought he must be playing on elastic bands. And who's Simon?
Simon is my cat. So
Okay.
during the pandemic, Simon acquired a new family, and yes, we didn't get him, he got us. Because that's what cats do, they acquire humans. And he allowed us to continue living in our house, which is nice. And so Simon is my best buddy, my cat. He is such a character. And he has like 20 different beds in the house. Ones that look like tents and igloos to human beings to one of them was this cow printed round bed. It almost looks like a spaceship when he sits in it, and he's got such a big old butt that every time he sat in it, it would like tilt. And kept it by the window to the deck outside where he would just be on, neighborhood watch, checking to make sure there's no squirrels or birds trying to, So we would always just laugh at him while we looked at him out there, and it looked like he was in a spaceship. So we would just say that, it looks like he's like flying through space. I wonder if he imagines that he's in space. So just as a joke for ourselves, our own amusement, we made an Instagram page called Simon in Space, where it's all him in that cow bed flying through space and different space scenes and stuff. And it's just my cat Simon in space. So when I made that song and the song was done, as I listened to it and all the different sounds, it really, when I make my own music, it's the last thing you would ever hear on radio. It's not that kind of music. And that's just me. I don't make that kind of music. But it really works toward visual stuff. So I've had decades of work or just my music used in TV commercials, TV shows, horror movies, video games, things like that. It flourishes in that world. And I tend to write especially instrumental music that sort of makes you picture something. And at least it makes me picture something. And with this song, in the beginning, that chaos and all of that going on, and that theremin-y kind of high guitar thing, I pictured being in a spaceship, just like suddenly waking up out of sleep, like, what the hell? And you're in the middle of an asteroid belt, and it's like, holy shit, let me get, and then you get through it, and traveling, just going through space and just seeing different things, and like the chorus with the nice melody and all would be like seeing like beautiful nebula and things like that, and then suddenly it's like, oh, and the asteroid's coming back and you're going through it again. To me, it just feels like a big, long space journey. So by the time the song was done, I was like, of course, Simon in Space. And that led to also my first album. Not that I felt like this was a sequel, but just more of if my first instrumental album from 30 years ago was going to happen today, what would be the 30 years later version of it? And instead of having the crudely done, artwork that it had 30 years ago, where it was like this half bee, half foot Bumblefoot, and it had a stinger in the wings and the stripes and all of this chaos below, burning buildings, ground opening up, dogs puking, all this crazy weird stuff. Instead, it's like 30 years later, okay, now it's this guitar as a spaceship and all kinds of bizarre space things, and Simon, my cat, is flying the spaceship, if you look really close, as his face as in the astronaut suit flying it. And all the things that are challenges to Simon. So you have, or just things of interest to him. So you have like robot, alien fish and mice and birds, and asteroids made of cheese, and all this weird shit. And just also just the chaos of it all. So it's really the current, this moment, redo version of that very first album. And I never even wanted to do instrumental music. Like, I would make songs just for fun on my own, but my goal was always to be like the bands that really inspired me most, like Kiss, the Beatles, bands where you got four people that you know on a first name basis, and it's vocals, musicians that sing, and making rock music. And that was always the path that I tried to walk on and be part of. When I got my first record deal in 1994, it was Shrapnel Records, which was a guitar instrumental label, but they told me that they were starting to do vocal music and they were going to make a subsidiary that does vocal music. So that's what they signed me for. And it was going to be vocal music. And as soon as I signed, they said, well, would you just do an instrumental album to start things off? It's like, you're taking me off my path. That is not what we agreed to, but I did it. And then right after that, immediately, the next album we put out had vocals. And then when I started my own label, just to put out my own music for the next decades, it was all vocal music where I might put an instrumental song here and there because I always loved Van Halen and the way they would also just have a small little guitar interlude between the vocal songs. It's like you have the main songs of the album, but then you have Spanish Fly, or you had, Eruption, or the intro to Little Guitars. Like all of those. But you know what? I shouldn't play it because it could actually get you flagged on YouTube if I play someone else's song. Fucking YouTube. So, all of that stuff. So I would do that on my albums. Just have a random one or two or more instrumental songs. But I just got the itch. I was like, let me give my throat a break. And also, if I'm going to be doing a lot more teaching and producing and things, let me just really go full blown on just interesting production with the stuff, like more diversity in the songs, more variety, and just letting, like, one song is pretty much all orchestra, there's barely any guitar in it. Another one is all this heavy stuff, and it's just the different moods I was in, and just trying to make them sound the most of what they are. And with the teaching, if I'm going to do a lot of clinics and master classes and music camps, rather than feeling like I need a whole band to do my music and sing, I could just play guitar and use it for that. Like it was fitting the path that I was thinking about going on more. And it just felt right. Like, you know what? I should do another instrumental album and start just going more down that road.
That's kind of like the Richie Kotzen story, isn't it? He had to do an instrumental, and then the second he started doing the vocals, and I think he was in the same situation as you. Was he shrapnel as well?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I guess they wanted to get you solidified as a guitar hero, and then you can do whatever you want.
I guess, but it's interesting how whatever you do, whatever the first thing you do is, or whatever the biggest thing you do is, tends to define you, and it's hard to shake that. So you have to really consider that when, like, you don't, especially when you're starting out and you're getting opportunities, you don't want to say no to anything. It's like, you may never get another opportunity. At least that's the mindset. So you're not going to say, no, take me out of the record deal. I'm not doing an instrumental guitar thing. I want to enter this world as a vocalist of a rock band, a guitar player, vocalist, a Paul Stanley, or a Kurt Cobain, or somebody that is a singing guitar player. And I don't want to be an instrumental guitarist and have to try and spend the rest of my time breaking that definition of me that has been created and try to convince people that I'm something else. Because picture it, you come out as an instrumental guitarist, then suddenly, like, I sing, I was like, oh, he's another guitarist trying to sing, compared to just coming out there as that. People accept you as that, and they say that's what you are.
Right.
So that tends to happen, those kind of things. So people need to really consider, like, if you don't want to be a hired gun and you want to be an artist, if you want to be the one that hires, not the one that gets hired, let's say, if you spend all your time doing hired gun gigs, and it's like, but no, I'm actually a solo artist, and I'm an artist. I'm not just this, session guy that gets hired. People won't believe you. They'll say, oh, he's a session guy that's trying to be an artist. Like, that's what happens, that kind of shit. So it takes a lot of guts or hope or something to say no to all the offers that come and say, no, I need to just stay on this path and not take anything else that comes in that are going to redefine me, and stay on it and bust my ass and try to make that work. people are afraid, and they should be. Like when you're in your 20s, you don't know how you're going to survive, and you're getting opportunities thrown at you. You're not going to say, no, I'm going to keep struggling and starving and not breaking into the music world so that I can be exactly what I see myself as being. That is a scary thing to, that's a tough road to be on.